Hello, 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 hello. We have a really special event going on. This is the kind of thing that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. If you're a Bitcoin enthusiast, you probably go and look at the bitcoin.org website and see where we are at regarding the Bitcoin core protocols. And whenever they come out with a new one, these are the Bitcoin core developers, and this consists of people around the world contributing, and many of them have done this for free, without monetary reward. Literally a labor of love. You just don't see that in other coins. Other coins pay developers a salary, pay them a contract, make a contract, and you decide what they're going to get paid monetarily. And sure, there are developers in the Bitcoin ecosystem getting paid and working for companies, but Bitcoin Core and the overall Bitcoin ecosystem has hundreds of developers who have taken us all the way from Bitcoin 0.110, and even the work that was done before that's not been published 9.5 years ago, back in the days of Satoshi, to 0.151, and they usually come out with a major upgrade every 3 months. And you can go into them and see what they're all about. Every upgrade has improved the protocol. That's one of the things some people new to Bitcoin. They believe an altcoin that just came out is using newer technology. And it's therefore Bitcoin is something that's 9 years old. This new coin, coin ABC, is something that is using 2018 technology, not realizing that the Bitcoin of today is essentially an entirely new protocol than it was 9 years ago. It's really shed its skin and evolved several times. Of course, the blockchain is perfect. Going right back to the Genesis block, you can look at every transaction. It is an open ledger. However, there have been major changes. One of the big ones that I liked in their most recent update is, I think this really helped deal with some of the spamming that was happening on the Bitcoin blockchain, where we would get mempool attacks and people just taking one Bitcoin and bouncing it around, or a fraction of a Bitcoin and just bouncing it around and driving up the fees, filling up the blockchain with spam. And what you can see here is this is, I believe, 0.151. Yes, 1.15.1. That came out recently after 1.5.0. And one of the things that I noticed here is unrequested blocks with less work than the minimum chain work are now no longer processed, even if they have more work than the tip. This prevents peers wasting the resources of a node. When they say more work than the tip, they're talking about the tip of the chain. So this is one way to help reduce spam. And if I recall, this 1.5.1 came out right around the time of the Bitcoin Cash major price increase, and Bitcoin decreasing, coinciding at the exact same time, right when Bitcoin's mempool seemed to suddenly get overflowing with transactions, and really just, possibly, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it pretty obviously there was spamming of the mempool going on, and Bitcoin Cash, we know they have a war chest, and they will spend money to stay on top, to try to get on top. It didn't work. Every time they do an attack, Bitcoin gets stronger. That's one of its anti-fragile characteristics that I just love. But shortly after that, Bitcoin came out with this, and I really think it helped and is helping to curb the spam. Of course, they're going to find ways around it. It may just make it more expensive for miners to spam, and it is costly. If you're or diverting hash power, they could be making money mining, but there are some rich people involved in the space. We now check whether it is their best known block that has at least as much work as our tip. If it doesn't, and we still haven't heard about a block with sufficient work after a 20-minute timeout, then we send a single get headers message and wait 2 more minutes. If after 2 minutes their best known block has insufficient work, we disconnect that peer. We protect 4 of our outbound peers from being disconnected by this logic to prevent excessive network topology changes as a result of this algorithm, while still ensuring that we have a reasonable number of nodes not known to be on bogus chains. This, I really encourage anyone listening to this, if you haven't, take a look at these, and you can really see how Bitcoin has evolved. Every time they've come out with a protocol upgrade, it's really a beautiful thing to see. The Bitcoin of today is not the same Bitcoin as 9 years ago, 9.5 years ago, or even the same Bitcoin as 2 years ago. Really, one of the big changes was August 2017 when Segwit happened because of the user-activated hard fork, and we have been waiting 3 months now for 0.16, which is officially the Bitcoin Core Segwit wallet. And this is a big deal. You can do Segwit transactions on the Bitcoin Core protocol right now, but not using the graphical user interface, which is why I am so excited when I go to GitHub and go to milestones for Bitcoin and look at the milestones. You could see that 0.16 is now 98% complete. Just yesterday I looked at it and it said 85%. It went down to 82, then back up to 85, and I checked it today, literally 10 hours later when I woke up, and it's now 98% complete. And they even have this celebratory emote icon here. It says, "This will be the release of the Segwit wallet." And you were able to do Segwit transactions before, but now it's going to be much easier. It'll be on the GUI interface, the graphical user interface, and this is a big deal. I believe that once this is adopted, so it'll be released, we don't know when, but we see that it's 98% complete, so soon. That's got me excited. Once it's released, people download it, start running it, nodes are updated, and I'm looking forward to reading and seeing what other goodies are in there. But just Segwit being on Bitcoin Core alone will very likely have a pretty dramatic impact on the amount of Segwit adoption in the Bitcoin ecosystem and the entire protocol. And to monitor that, that's where I go to I go to segwit.party/charts, and you get to see where we are regarding the amount of Segwit being used. And right now we're sitting at about 14%, and you can look at the last day, the last 3 days, the last week. Just for example purposes, I'll click on since activation. Since that does go back a little while, it takes a few seconds to load because it is a lot of data. But one thing people need to understand is in August, when Segwit was approved, here it is, we saw that is really, in my opinion, one of the was the impetus for the big increase in price that we saw. That underlying technology correlates to price, not always, but the technology is what we're investing in. some people might say I'm investing in trends. I'm investing in the herd mentality. I believe that the solid technology behind Bitcoin and it having a unique trait of hundreds of developers around the world who work out of a labor of love, and that's something you don't see in other coins. That's really unique. And so when we finally, after 2 years of fighting for it, got Segwit implemented and approved after threatening the user-activated hard fork, we were able to start seeing Bitcoin's price go up, up, and up, and up. And that's a key milestone for Bitcoin. And that is when Bitcoin became one of the major, single most biggest improvements to Bitcoin. And now what we need to see is all the wallets, all the exchanges start adopting it. And a few weeks ago, for example, localbitcoins.com. Many people have heard of local bitcoins. It's a really great way of a decentralized type exchange where you can meet people in your community to buy or sell Bitcoin in a coffee shop. They are now using Segwit, which I'm sure if you look recently, especially the last few months, the last 2 months in particular, we can see a pretty strong increase in Segwit from about 9 to 10%, all the way up to over 18%, but I'd say around 13 to 14.25%. When the Bitcoin Core wallet comes out soon, which we can see is 98% ready, and it's adopted, we should see I'm hoping to see a huge increase in this number, and that'll take a little bit of time for people to download it and start using it. But that's exciting. The other big thing is Coinbase is going to be implementing Segwit in the next few weeks. That was announced 2 days ago. I spoke about it in my last video, but the fact that I'm not the biggest Coinbase fan, and I think they dragged their feet on being Segwit ready. Bitstamp was able to do it a long time ago. Trezor was on top of it. Ledger Nanos was on top of it. Coinbase, the McDonald's of Bitcoin, the Walmart of Bitcoin, such an on-ramp for people to buy Bitcoin. They do so much transactional volume, and if they were just using Segwit, we wouldn't have seen the huge fees problem. So whether you use Coinbase or the Bitcoin Core protocol or not, even if you don't use either one and they implement Segwit, it's still going to decongest the network and make more room in each block. Therefore, if you're still just using Mycelium that doesn't use Segwit, you will still have cheaper fees. If you're using a Segwit wallet like Trezor or Green Address on your phone, it will get even better. The more adoption we see, the less congestion there will be on the entire blockchain. And if you personally use a Segwit address and you're sending or receiving to a Segwit address, it's exponentially more beneficial for you regarding fees. And it also solves the transaction malleability, which does make your transaction slightly more secure, on top of which is already the most secure blockchain of them all, simply because of the incredible amount of hashing power and battle-tested experience Bitcoin has. And ultimately, one of the other reasons this is so important, this 98% in Coinbase and just further adoption of Segwit, is that the Lightning Network is something that requires Segwit to operate. So despite being only at 18%, people want to use Lightning, they can. They just have to use a Segwit compatible node and compatible wallet, which is being done already. It was done a long time on the testnet for well over a year, but now for the last few weeks it's gone on the mainnet. And I love looking at this